How's it going, everybody? It's Jeff Bang with Team Real the Blues. Well, I don't know if you've seen the previous video, but it was me showing how I made the skin for the inside of this thing. And if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it and you can see how I prepped everything for it. But what we're going to do in this video, I'm essentially going to start this video right at the point where I'm ready to put this new skin on the outside of this. Again, I'm going to go over stuff you've seen the videos, you already know what I'm doing, but this is for people that haven't seen those previous videos. This is an old tracker, deep V 17-foot boat. The outside of it was eat up with cancer, you might as well say corrosion. You can see all these dark spots. Well, the dark spots now aren't holes. Before, there was probably a couple hundred holes in this thing. You can see from this little clip in the video I'm putting up right now, that's me shining a light through the back side of it. So that shows you how many holes this thing actually had. But now, here's what we got. All these dark spots you see is actually an epoxy. It's a G-Flex epoxy. I'm going to put a link in it down below to where you can get it. But that G-Flex epoxy it's good stuff. I'm telling you, I've used it on many a project. The stuff will bond about anything. I could pretty much stop right here. These dark spots, like I said, they're not holes. They're all sanded flush. I've already sanded this entire thing with 60 grit sandpaper. I've opened up the pores really, really good. Got a really rough surface, and that's what you need with any epoxy. But anyway, I've got it all sanded down, ready to go. If it wasn't for the epoxy or wasn't for the holes that I drilled through it because of my attachments of the skin, this right here would be ready to go right now. It's great for fixing holes. I fixed a couple little small spots in the bottom of the boat, and I'm going to have videos showing me doing that also, putting new bucking rivets, the whole 9 yards. But this right here, what we're going to do, we're going to put a new skin on it. I've already got the skin ready to go. Here's the new skin. This skin here is 3/16 aluminum. When I put this on here, this thing's never going to leak. You see all these holes I've drilled? This is actually the mounting locations for all the bolts that go through the transom, through the wood part of the transom. And all these around the perimeter is where I'm going to add a row of bucking rivets. So this is a riveted boat, so I'm going to add bucking rivets all the way around it. Solid rivets is what they're called. You have to buck them to make them work. But we'll go ahead and add those to it, and I'll do a separate video showing me putting those in. But today, we're just going to get this skin attached. All right, first thing we're going to do is go ahead and get all the resin mixed up. It's a 1-to-1 mix. It's kind of cold here in the Carolinas right now, so what I've done is I've been warming it up. You don't want to get it too hot, but I've got it warm. That way it's easier to work with. We'll go ahead and get that mixed up and then get it applied to the skin, and then we'll apply another layer to this. So that way I've got a layer on the skin, a layer in this, and the reason why I'm doing that is because you want to work that epoxy into this surface. So what I usually use a scraper or even a stainless steel brush. Never use a steel brush on aluminum. Always use stainless steel. And the reason for that is because when you use a metal brush, a steel brush, what happens, it leaves microscopic portions of that steel brush in the surface, and it will rust. It will cause rust to start building up on those little particles, and it might break it loose eventually. But no use asking for trouble if you don't have to. Use a stainless steel brush or sandpaper. I've already cleaned this with lacquer thinner. I've already cleaned that with lacquer thinner. Both surfaces are ready to go. So we're going to go ahead and get the thin skin applied to that one, thin skin of the epoxy. A thin skin of epoxy put on this. We will put it in place. Once I put it in place, I'll go ahead and put a row of clamps around the top, and then I'll run screws through those holes. These holes you see here are only an 1/8 inch. The holes in that panel right there are actually 3/16, which is the size of the rivet we're going to use. So that way I can go through that without any tension, and it will draw that up dead tight against this skin. We'll go ahead and get that done. All right, everything's prepped and ready to go. Make sure you have everything ready to go before you ever start this, because you have a limited amount of time to get this done once this epoxy starts being applied. It don't go very far either, so always make more than what you need. And always make sure you got enough to do what you're going to do before you ever start. Because if you run out, you're screwed. edges is the most important part. Make sure you get a good coat on all the edges. And let it roll. Okay, she's ready. Alright, that part's ready. Everything's done. Let me wipe this little spot right in here. We got plenty of epoxy. I got the drill ready. I got the screws ready. We'll get her put in place and get it done. I didn't say it on the video, but you want to make sure you mark which is the inside and which is the outside when you make these. It'd be a shame to make it. See what I mean? That epoxy bonds like crazy. You can see it's already stuck. When we put the screws in it, it's done. We'll go ahead and put on some clean gloves. Okay, we got our fasteners, we got our skin applied. What's bad, when I start torquing this down, it's going to make a mess. They put something under it to catch all the epoxy that oozes out, which oozing out epoxy is a good thing. Alright, we'll find this first mounting location where we got our holes pre-drilled, get it pulled in, go and slap a screw in it. And that way everything lines up. You know, we pre-drilled every bit of this. If I can keep my gloves from catching my fingers here. We pre-drilled every bit of this, so I should be able to line one up and go. Stock right there, it's just lightly tacked. Put one on this corner. Alright. We got two in it. Now we know everything's good and straight. Let me go ahead and put one on the bottom here. Everything's pulled in. Put a row of clamps. I put the old transom back in it because I haven't made the new transom yet. Now if you already had your new transom made, go ahead and put it in there before you put the skin on. That way you can use it to clamp to and suck that right in there to it, and that also sets the form of the boat. Okay, well, we've got it on. It's going to be solid too. Like I say, everywhere you see one of these screws, that's where I'm going to put bucking rivets. All the way around the perimeter. About every 2 inches. I may even add a few more once I get to putting them in. Reason why you see these gaps, that's where a truss is on the inside, and I really couldn't get a bucking bar to it, but I still may just go ahead and get me a bucking bar that I can get up behind it. But right now, I've got it all sealed in. I've got it all clamped off. The top's the only part I clamped. The reason I clamped here, I really wasn't going to put any bucking rivets across the top here. I may end up doing it anyway because they do serve another purpose. If I use those bucking rivets in there, it's going to put about an 1/8 inch space between it and the wood in there, so that way any water that gets in there don't get trapped and it ain't being pinched against this thing, and to give it a way for the water to wick through if it has to. Hopefully we won't be getting water in there, but you know, it's inevitable. Waves coming over the back of the boat, you're going to get water in the back of the boat. It's no big deal. But we'll just let this cure for about 24 hours and we'll pull all this loose, and this project will be ready for me to go ahead and put the new transom in and bolt everything back together. We've got the new skin on. Now you'll notice I skipped a few steps since the last time I filmed, and the reason why is because putting in these bucking rivets, it's not hard to do, but it's a little bit time consuming. It took me about, to put in what I put in here took about 45 minutes to do, but 30 minutes of that was just getting the machine set up and getting my die set up the right way. It's not that hard, I just couldn't find the right die, and then once I found the right die, it wasn't hard at all. I've got all the bucking rivets in around the perimeter, so let's just go over the basics of riveting. I ain't gonna get into it. I got a video gonna come out probably in the next 2 weeks that's gonna be nothing but how to make these rivets work. They're not that hard. There's a lot of people scared of them. They're not that big a deal to put them in. But I'm gonna show you on video. I've got these 5 at the top here, haven't been bucked yet. I'm gonna go ahead and buck those in, and I'll show you how it's done. It's a pretty simple process. And then that video I'm gonna show later on down the line, I'll go into a whole lot more detail on exactly how that's done. Okay, first let's talk about what a bucking rivet is. This is nothing but a solid rivet is what it's actually called. That's what your boat's made out of. The way these work, I'm just gonna do a basic explanation right now, and we'll go into a whole lot more depth in the later video. But essentially, you stick this through the hole, you put a heavy weight on this side, you use an air hammer on the top side, the part that looks like a mushroom here. You use an air hammer and you drive it into the heavy weight that you got inside there. Alright, this process is a whole lot easier if you got 2 people, one holding the bucking bar on the inside and one hitting it from the outside. As you can see, the rivet's nice and loose, so let's go. As you can see, it's not that hard. It just takes a little bit of practice and just knowing how to do it. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe, ring that bell. I'll be posting a video up pretty soon that'll show you all you need to know to put these in, or at least enough to know where you'd feel comfortable putting them in yourself. And as always, I appreciate you watching. Thank you.